Hi, class. Today we're going to talk about the types of third parties in the American political experience. There's primarily four kinds of third parties. There's the economic protest third party, there's the ideological third party, the single issue third party, and the splinter parties. Each one we're going to talk about here momentarily. I want to start with the economic protest party. The economic protest party, they generally express their discontent with the major parties and the economic situation that happens to be going on in America at the time. The Roosevelt's Bull Moose Party, back in the 19 teens, or at least early 1900s, was an example of an economic protest party. Another example, Ross Perot, this guy who was a billionaire, created a third party movement in the 1990s, and he was instrumental in seeing Bill Clinton get elected for reasons that we're going to talk about here in a sec. Another kind of third party are the ideological third parties, and an ideological party is one that's less interested in the pursuit of political power and more interested in seeing its belief system or ideology take over American society. An ideological party will have a comprehensive view of social and political or economic matters, a platform that's just comprehensive. They don't compromise. An example might be the Communist Party of the United States. Okay, there is, in fact, a Communist Party of the United States. It is an example of an ideological party. They will make no exceptions to any of their rules in the pursuit of power. They want to assert their ideology on America completely. Another type of third party are the single issue parties. These guys focus on one issue or just a small range of issues, and that's it. Okay, that's what motivates them and focuses their political activity. For example, there might be an abortion party, a party whose sole issue of interest is abortion, and if they run candidates, that's what they're interested in. If you ask them about the economy, they'll talk about abortion. If you ask them about immigration reform, they'll talk to you about abortion. And they don't really have a lot of legs, generally, in politics. They're not really successful, but they want to get their single issue out there in front of the public. Now, a splinter party is the last kind of third party I want you to be aware of. These split off from one of the major parties, either from the Democrats or from the Republicans. And I call these the electoral kiss of death for a major party. And I want you to take a moment, pause the video, and jot down a sentence or two as to why you think that's the case. Okay, why is that why is a splinter party the electoral kiss of death for a major party? Okay, now that you're back, one reason, not the only reason, but one reason is that it splits the support of the one party between two candidates, and that can be devastating. You're trying to keep a unified electoral process going, trying to get the Democrats are trying to get their candidate elected, and then if there's a splinter party, there's a party who pushes their candidate as apart from the Democratic candidate, that's going to split the interests of the people. Now, there's lots of examples, and we're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about those examples in this video. I do want to go back to the single issue party. One example of the single issue party, besides the abortion party that doesn't really exist, is the Green Party. The Green Party started off as a single issue party. Their sole interest was environmental matters. Their sole interest was pushing an environmental agenda. The Green Party has developed, they've evolved into more of an economic protest party. They started off as a single issue party. They evolved into an economic protest party. Okay. And so they're now a viable third party that has gotten some electoral success over the past decade or so. Well, let's talk about what third parties have brought to the American political process. To begin with, they brought to us political conventions. The 1830s saw the first political convention in American history held by a third party. And the other parties, the Republicans and Democrats, actually started doing them themselves. They started holding they started holding party conventions every 4 years for their presidential candidate. And that's where that nominating function of political parties, really, you see it most visibly at the political convention. They nominate the president, their presidential candidate. They nominate their vice presidential candidate at these party conventions. And today, our system has incorporated political conventions into the regular process of a presidential election campaign. Okay, and those happen at the state level as well as the national level. They also develop a party platform. A party platform is a document which states the positions of the political party, be it Democrat, Republican, Green Party, whoever, as to every major conceivable issue. Okay, if you want to know what the official word of the Democratic Party is on any topic, you turn to the party platform. Now, does that mean that every Democrat agrees with every aspect of that document? Well, I think you know the answer to that, and the answer, of course, is no. Individuals can depart from the party platform. The point is that these party platforms demonstrate the differences between the parties. Okay, and there's a lot of talk in about there not being any real substantive difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, for example, in the media. I don't know. I think there is a substantial difference between the parties philosophically. Now, how they govern, we could argue that point. Now, why are the conventions still relevant? Are they relevant in an age where, we're so internet dependent? Does it make a difference that thousands of party faithful descend upon some city in August or September of an election year and then talk about this stuff? Well, I'd argue, yeah, they're still relevant because they help highlight the differences between the parties. And then there's one whole week of media coverage of the Republican or Democratic conventions where the parties can really stay on message and where they can get out a more or less coherent message of what their party stands for and why the people should elect their guy or gal. Now, other contributions of third parties include their willingness to address issues that the Republicans and Democrats don't want to talk about. One example, I suppose, from the 90s is Ross Perot, who is this guy over here, talking about NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. And what was going on here was NAFTA was the creation of a tariff-free zone from Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And they were going to drop all the tariffs and they're going to eliminate basically most of the travel restrictions between these three countries. And NAFTA actually has been adopted and it's been in place for decades. Well, Ross Perot's contention was, this is going to be bad for America. This is going to be bad for American jobs and businesses. And he made that his primary message in his presidential campaign. Now, another example is Ralph Nader, this guy over here. Ralph Nader is the Green candidate, has been the Green candidate for the past couple election cycles, presidential election cycles. Ralph Nader, in part, also pushes back against big money in politics, the necessity for big campaign contributors to be donating money, and he just finds that corrupting. The corrupting influence of money is one of his issues that he addresses, and it can be very uncomfortable for these Republicans and Democratic candidates who take in hundreds of millions of dollars from lobbyists and interest groups to talk about these issues. talk about the fact that they're taking all this money, and the third party candidates are bringing up the issue because neither the Republicans nor the Democrats are going to on their own. And of course, disappointment in the Democrats or Republicans can really fuel support for a third party effort. Okay. And so they're valuable contributors to our political discourse. Now, I want to go through just a couple examples of the spoiler aspect of the third parties. For example, in 1912, Teddy Roosevelt and his Bull Moose Party split the Republican vote. Okay, Taft, who was the Republican mainstream candidate, his support was split with the Bull Moose. Teddy Roosevelt was running because he hadn't been nominated by the party, and he was upset about that. That allowed the Democratic candidate, Woodrow Wilson, to cruise to an electoral success. I mean, look at this political map. Okay, the blue is Wilson's vote, the green is Roosevelt's Bull Moose, and the red is Taft. Now, if you look at the popular vote, you'll see that if Roosevelt hadn't run, Taft more likely than not would have gained something like 7.5 million votes. He would have captured not only all these green states and the red states, but probably a lot of these blue states as well, who otherwise would have gone red if they hadn't been split by this inter-party fight. What's the result? Woodrow Wilson becomes president, and both the Bull Moose and the Republicans lose out. Okay. What's the lesson? If you get a big percentage to a third-party candidate, that can cost the major party the election. Another example is the election in 1992. Okay, Bill Clinton ran as the Democratic candidate. George H.W. Bush was running for a second term as president, and Ross Perot ran his third party. And basically, when you look at these electoral results, as you can see, Clinton won a plurality of 43%. Bush and Perot together pulled in 57%, but Bush came in second with 38%. Look at the Electoral College vote result. 19 million votes went to Ross Perot. Okay, George H.W. Bush got 39 million. And quite frankly, Ross Perot pulled more votes from George H.W. Bush than he ever did from Bill Clinton. Okay, more Republicans favored Perot's message, fewer Democrats. And so the net effect was to cost George H.W. Bush the election. Finally, the 2000 election. Al Gore and George W. Bush, the son of the aforementioned H.W. Bush. Basically, the election came down to the results from Florida. Okay. Now, Ralph Nader was also in the election. And basically what happened was, with the Electoral College being the way it is, you need 270 Electoral College votes to win. Al Gore had 267 and a 500,000 vote popular vote margin. George W. Bush had 246 Electoral College votes. Now, if you added 25 to the 25 votes from Florida into his, that would equals 271. Okay, and of course Gore would have won a squeaker, but he would have won comfortably with Florida. Now, without Ralph Nader, Nader was to the left of Al Gore. Okay, voters would have had to either stay home or vote for Al Gore. Those voters that went to Nader would have probably voted for Al Gore. Okay, but because Nader was in the picture, here's what happened. In Florida, George W. Bush got 2,912,790 votes. Gore got 2,912,253 votes. Nader pulled 97,000. Bush wins by 537 votes. And who says your vote doesn't count, right? Okay, what would Nader say about all the criticism that flowed in from the Democrats saying, you gave the election to George W. Bush, you stole it from our candidate? He would have said those were votes for Ralph Nader and not for Gore. If Gore had been more attentive to his left, Nader wouldn't have had a plank to stand on, but he wasn't. We'll talk about this more in class. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the evening.